What's up, Winter and Sparrow friends? It's your girl Kim, and I am back with another weight loss surgery related video. It has again been a couple weeks since I shared a video, so I figured now is the time. So let's get to it. So, what are we talking about today? We are talking about gastric bypass surgery versus gastric sleeve surgery. Yes. We're going to talk about why I chose gastric sleeve over gastric bypass. So let's get started. But first, so anyway, just to recap, if y'all don't know, I'm Kim from Winter and Sparrow. I had gastric sleeve surgery in June of 2017, and I have lost 100 pounds. Yes, yes, yes. 100 pounds, and I'm so excited. I went from a size 18 down to a size 4 or 6, depending on the clothing fit. And now, of course, sizes aren't a big deal. It's where you're comfortable. I gotta tell you, my weight is 140. My goal weight is 130. The scale isn't budging, so I don't know. My body seems to have reached a stuck point. We'll see. A set point, I guess you could call it. But let's talk about why I decided to have gastric sleeve instead of gastric bypass. But let's talk about what happens during gastric sleeve surgery. During gastric sleeve surgery, the surgeon goes in and removes 3/4 of your stomach. They take out, they call it the big balloon piece. Now, during gastric bypass surgery, the surgeon goes in and removes or reroutes part of your small intestine, changes up your stomach, and cuts part of your stomach off. I know I'm not explaining it very well, so let's look at a graphic. It does a much better job of explaining than I could. So let's take a look. So, as you can see, there's a bit of a difference. Now, the first reason I chose gastric sleeve over gastric bypass was because it's less invasive of the two surgeries. It doesn't require rerouting of anything. It just requires cutting off a piece of your stomach and stapling it back up. Um, when you get to be in your 40s, you kind of want to, I guess, take the easier, well, not the easier route, but the easier of the two routes, I should say. So I didn't want to deal with any complications or try to avoid them as possible. So to me, gastric sleeve surgery presents fewer risks than gastric bypass, so that's why I chose that one. Second of all, I really didn't want anybody messing with my small intestine. Now, here's why. If you don't know much about anatomy, physiology, the small intestine is where your body takes the food you've eaten and kind of extracts the nutrients. So that happens in the small intestine. Now, what I've learned over the years is that for some people who have gastric bypass, after they've had gastric bypass, they have nutrient absorption problems. Now, one of my best friends had gastric bypass maybe, I want to say 15 years ago, and she constantly had low iron related to the gastric bypass. All the time, low iron, low iron, low iron. And then another friend of mine, the same thing, but with B12. So I didn't want to do gastric bypass and worry about nutrient absorption, because if there's a 1% chance that you're going to have problems, this girl right here is going to fit into the 1%. I'm just saying, it always happens. So that's another reason. The third reason is my BMI was not that high to begin with. In other words, my obesity, I was considered morbidly obese, but I didn't weigh over 300 pounds. I weighed 200 and some change. Now, if I weighed over 250 or maybe close to 300 or more, I probably would have chosen gastric bypass despite all of the risks that I mentioned, because I knew that I would need it to lose more weight, because typically gastric bypass patients lose more weight overall versus gastric sleeve patients. So my starting BMI was a big deal. It was not really that high. I barely squeaked in for the qualifications. I think you may have had to have a 35 or 38. Anyway, I can't remember. But let's just say I barely squeaked by. So because my goal weight, I didn't want to lose more than 150 pounds, I said, well, let me stick with the gastric sleeve. So let's see, what are we on? Number 4, number 5. The other reason I chose gastric sleeve was I wanted to have an option, let's say, in case I really screwed up. So if you don't know, if you have gastric sleeve surgery and let's say you stretch out your stomach later on, or you haven't lost all the weight you want, or you're putting on weight and you don't know why, depending on what your surgeon says, you can go back and have a revision surgery or gastric bypass. So I wanted to leave that option there. So if, let's say, 5 years from now, I've stretched out my stomach, which I sure hope doesn't happen, but let's say I do and I'm putting on weight, I can always then go back and have them do a gastric bypass. So if I would have had a gastric bypass, first of all, I wouldn't have that option. And that's really kind of a silly reason as I'm talking about it, because it's like saying, yeah, I want to have this backup option in case I screw up, but you know, that's just how you think. You want to think, well, if I want to have options if things don't work out. So that's the other reason, is I chose to have gastric sleeve first. The fifth reason I chose gastric sleeve over gastric bypass is I didn't want to worry about dumping. Now, if you don't know what dumping is where you eat something and all of a sudden your blood sugar drops and you feel miserable. If you've ever had what's called low blood sugar or hypoglycemia, then you know what I'm talking about. You get the sweats, you get shaky, you feel like you're starving, your heart's racing. It is a miserable, miserable feeling. Now, before surgery, I had what's called insulin resistance syndrome or metabolic resistance, which means my blood sugar was all over the place. So there were times where I would eat typically a meal high in carbs, and 30 minutes later I would have a blood sugar dump and my blood sugar would go down and I'd get that dumping syndrome. Of course, then I was starving and I'd eat again and then put on weight, but that's a whole nother story. So dumping is miserable. I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to worry about dumping. And with gastric sleeve, I have not experienced dumping at all. And hopefully I won't ever. Now, one of the things I definitely recommend is, no matter where you are in this journey, if you're thinking about having weight loss surgery, or you've had weight loss surgery, or you just had weight loss surgery, is stay away from the carbs. The carbs will mess with your blood sugar. Also, they'll put on weight and they'll fill you up quicker, which isn't a good thing because you need to get your protein in, and carbs like pasta and bread don't have much protein in it. So just stay away from the carbs. So those are really my 5 reasons why I opted for gastric sleeve instead of gastric bypass. Now, with that being said, I've got 10 pounds to my goal weight. Do I think I would have reached my goal weight by now if I had chosen gastric bypass? I want to say probably I would have. But that's okay. It just says to me that maybe my body is happy at this point, and or maybe I need to work out more, which is hard for me because if you don't know, I have multiple sclerosis and fibromyalgia and arthritis. So working out is not really a good option. And what I mean by working out is I mean aerobics, jazzercise. Yeah, no. You don't want to see me try that because my balance is horrible and I probably fall, bust my butt, and break a hip. Something fun like that. So, and I also think too, maybe I could get these last 10 pounds off if I could exercise harder and more, but I can't. So keep that in mind. If you're healthy and you don't have, other conditions that prevent you from working out, you'll probably have a much better success at weight loss than I will. My only exercise right now is walking and yoga and using resistance bands. So there's no aerobics whatsoever. So if you can work out, you'll drop the weight faster and hopefully it'll stay off. So those are my reasons, and I wanted to make today's video kind of quick and just get to the point. A lot of you have asked me, emailed me, why did you choose gastric sleeve over gastric bypass? So I wanted to take today to address that. And also, I am drinking these shakes today, Core Power. They are mad expensive. I think if you buy one, they're like $2 or $3. But the good thing is they are lactose and gluten-free. And lactose just sometimes is not my friend. And even Premier protein shakes will cause some issues. But when I drink these, I don't have any lactose-related problems. And as you can see, 42 grams of protein. Calories is only 240, and this bad boy right here will fill you up. So anyway, I hope you found today's video helpful. If you have, make sure you hit like or subscribe. And if you want to check out my earlier videos, there are plenty of them on YouTube. So appreciate you watching, and good luck to you wherever you are in your journey. So take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.